when the messenger couldn't hold Savior's Day, he let Malcolm X hold Savior's Day. When I was in school as a child, when my teacher missed one day, the principal had to send us a substitute teacher. So the Republicans is raising a legitimate argument, and I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm an independent. But it's a legitimate argument that if President Biden cannot run for president, why is he serving as president? He's mentally and physically incapacitated right now.
Against Joe Biden? It's sort of, yeah.
I think it is.
Vance even calling for Democrats to remove Biden from office.
If Joe Biden can't run for president, he can't serve as president. And if they want to take him down because he's mentally incapable of serving, invoke the 25th Amendment.
Similar sentiments echoed by other Republicans. House Speaker Mike Johnson saying Biden must resign the office immediately. Republicans now turning their attention to Vice President Harris.
It's official. President Biden drops out of the White House race. He endorses his Vice President Harris. Listen up.
It's lengthy. The top of it, she says all the things that you would expect a vice president to say of the president for which they serve and for which she has been the side of for 3.5 years now. So I want to start by reading the end of this, saying, quote, I am honored to have the president's endorsement, and my intention is to earn and win this nomination.
There you go.
Over the past year, I have traveled across the country, talking with Americans about the clear choice in this momentous election, and that is what I will continue to do in the days and weeks ahead. I will do everything in my power to unite the Democratic Party and unite our nation to defeat Donald Trump and his extreme Project 2025 agenda. We have 107 days until Election Day. Together we will fight, and together we will win.
As a student follower of the life-giving teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, I do not come to you today as a Democrat, nor do I come to you as a Republican. Politically, I come to you on the level that you can comprehend as an independent. But in reality, I come to you as a God. Messenger Elijah Muhammad teaches us in Message to the Black Man in America in 1965, he said, start your own political party. Decades ago, we started our own political party. It's known commonly as the FJEI Party, or the Freedom, Justice, and Equality Party. Unfortunately, independent parties in the Republic of the United States of America, or the government of the people, by the people, for the people, go unheard. I personally like Bernie Sanders. I say that so you know that I'm not into organized religion. I don't hate white folks. I traveled all the way to New York City and was at Bernie's rally out Central Park a few years back. I was at Bernie's rally in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania with Dr. Cornel West on security a few years ago. So that's my political preference. But what I want the Democrats to understand, what I want the Republicans to understand, what I want the independents to understand, that there's nothing spooky. America is what it is. America can never, like no other government, it could never please all of the people all of the time. We just simply have too many expectations on our leadership rather than religious leaders, political leaders, or social leaders. However, at the same time, I ain't going to say some, I'm going to say most of our leaders underestimate and doubt the power, the significance of the people. The United States as a republic is supposed to be a government of the people, by the people, for the people. The reality of it is economics, money came into the game. And whenever money comes into the game, I don't care if you call yourself a capitalist, a socialist, whatever. You know what I mean? You could be a communist or whatever. You can say you're Christian, you're Muslim, you're Jewish, you're atheist, you're agnostic, whatever. At the end of the day, you want to be safe. You want to be secure. You want to be able to do for yourself. You want to be able to pay for your own bills. Without that, you have insecurity. You have prejudice. You have racism, sexism, classism, all these isms, all this spooky stuff jumping off. I personally don't hate Trump. I personally am not a worshiper of Biden. Me personally, I look at it as a so-called black man or African American as a so-called, I don't go by none of the nomenclature that the organized religions and organized politics or organized worlds go by. But in general, it's like, I think that it's time that the world had more to choose from than the old white men. Old white men has been ruling the world for the past 6,000 years. On rare occasions, white women. But there's always some European power. It's the Spaniards, it's the French, it's the Portuguese, it's the English, it's the British. Some European power came to some black, brown, yellow, or red nation and took over. That's just simply the gangster reality of it. I don't hate the player. I dislike the game. The players are in a position and condition wherein they would do what most human beings would do. If we look at Africa before colonization, Africans raped, robbed, and murdered Africans. It's just a reality. Like the same thing with Chinese, Indians, blacks and Hindus went to war for the past 35,000 years. That's just something in human nature. You know what I mean? Like if you dive into the ocean, you're going to see wars amongst the marine creatures in the oceans. You're going to see vicious wars amongst lions and tigers and bears. The lions don't hate the zebra. They just was designed to eat them. Now, when a lion attacks a zebra and rips its throat out and eat it up, its spouse, its children looks at that lion like, yo, you're the devil. You're the enemy to us. And the zebras are 1,000,000,000% correct by nature. It's the same thing with the birds in the air. We say in science, birds of a feather flock together. It's not racism or sexism or classism for black crows to want to live amongst black crows. I don't get upset if my white neighbors like to keep that community lily white. That's not anything personal against me. I mean, like, I was originally born and raised in North Philadelphia. We simply didn't have a bunch of white folks down there. We had some white folks. I mean, as a child, I remember my next door neighbor happened to be a black man. He happened to be married to a white woman, Miss Susie. Her last name is irrelevant. But what is relevant is Miss Susie was a good. I liked her. I ain't just like her. My family liked her. My neighbors liked her. She never, ever had a beef with any black woman in the hood. No black woman was like, oh, why you got this black man? Nah. They had a little daughter. Normally, when a black man has a child with a white woman, the child comes out kind of dark, like on Obama's side, the Mariah Carey side. But that daughter really came out as to me, 100% white. Like when I seen that daughter, she was younger than me. She was, when I was like 14, I guess she was about 10. But when I seen her, she had blonde hair, blue eyes, white skin, but she had a black father and a white mother, and she didn't have an inkling of superiority amongst us. She didn't have no racism amongst us. She was just my neighbor. Me personally, having 3 sisters, she was like my 4th little sister. I mean, like, I would make sure that she ain't had no problems in the hood. You know what I mean? So, black folks don't take things personally when it comes to racism, sexism, and classism. You know what I mean? It's like, we do certain things out of ignorance, out of fear, out of doubt, out of guilt, regret, what have you. But overall, as the messenger teaches us, black folks got a heart of gold. I mean, like, it's easier for us to accept a white female or white male marrying into the black community than it is for the white community to accept a black female or black male marrying into a white community. That's just reality. There are dominant recessive genes in reality. Historically, and history is not a science, but historically speaking, in a sense of what is easily verifiable, what is generally agreed upon. When we study ancient Kemet, Black Egypt, for example, there's this black goddess known as Aset or Isis. She was considered the ideal wife, the Umi, the ideal mother, the goddess of natural herbs. She was considered a black woman that was considered the goddess of mathematics or cause and effects. There was this other black lady that rose to prominence. She was known as Oshun. She was the Yoruba goddess of love, fertility, and rivers, because around the world, everybody had a flood myth. Everybody lived along some type of river. You know what I mean? She was considered the goddess of sensuality. Black is beautiful, basically. You know what I mean? Fertility. That was her. And there was this other black lady, a goddess. Every time you look at a black woman, you're actually looking at a goddess. What? Yeah, when you look at Kamala Harris, you're physically looking at a human goddess Sakine, or goddess in person. There was this other ancient goddess known as Mami Wata. She was a water goddess, basically, worshipped in West, Central, in Azania, or what's called today South Africa. Her powers in the dominant sense was healing and protection. She's actually considered the original mermaid because she's the one that showed and proved that all life came from H2O, or the atoms of water, and that water can be in the form of a liquid. You can vibrate the atoms real slow and it'll turn into ice at 32 degrees, or you can vibrate the atoms real fast and they will heat up at 212 degrees and boil you and transform into a liquid steam. So this is the powers of this ancient goddess known as Mami Wata. I bring all this stuff up as a backdrop so that you can understand it's nothing new for the Umi or the mother goddess to be in a position of power over a nation. So Kamala Harris running for president, like I said, she's Democrat. I'm not Democrat. I'm an independent. I'm really actually more than independent. I'm a humanitarian. I deal with common sense. But I deal with reality, reality, the truth, the pure truth, mathematical. It has to be cause and effect for me, actions and reactions. So when I look at her, I look at her policies. I be like, oh, she's a beautiful black woman. She's running against Trump. That is not enough for me to be like, oh, the black power, black woman. No, I'm gonna vote for her. No, that's absolutely not enough. I mean, I personally, be like, wait a minute. She's mixed with what? Different national, black, Asian, whatever. That's irrelevant because Asians are black. But she's married to a white Jew. I'm not anti-Semitic. I mean, I actually believe that we have a lot in common. I mean, like the Muslims be talking about halal food and Jews talk about kosher food, but we're all followers of the teachings of Moses or Musa. We're all followers of Ibrahim or Abraham. It's all the same thing, just in a different way. So I don't get into the organized religious aspect of things, but I do look at the reality of things, the mathematics. I believe that reality is mathematics. Our universe is structured wherein we're either adding and multiplying or we're dividing and subtracting. Let's look at Kamala Harris's record in the context or in the backdrop of other modern goddesses that ran before her. See, a lot of people look at it like, Kamala Harris, she could be the first black president. But there are other black goddesses, Umis, mothers, aunts, nieces, sisters, that ran before her, that paved the way. You see? See, people don't understand that, like Abraham Lincoln ain't free no slaves, but he at least, signed the Emancipation Proclamation. Abraham Lincoln emancipated the slaves. Bill Clinton was considered the first black president. Riding on his coattail was President Obama. I didn't agree with everything Obama said and did just because he was a black man, a brother in the struggle. But riding on his coattail was President Biden. I personally like Biden. Absolutely disagreed with him on many things. But as an independent, I have to honestly say that path laid down by Abraham Lincoln President Bill Clinton. Technically, before him, President Kennedy. His brother Bobby Kennedy. You know what I mean? But President Bill Clinton. President Barack Hussein Obama. President Biden. And now, President-elect Kamala Harris. She came from old roots, like the Unity campaign by a sister that ran for president way back in 1972. This sister was known as Shirley Chisholm. I remember personally, I personally received an actual personal letter from her, but it was an independent sister that ran, known as Lenora B. Fulani, back in 1988. Those of you who are members of the Nation of Islam, if you take and look in the archives and look at the old 1988 Final Calls newspapers, you'll see pictures and articles from her. She is on the front line of the struggle for peace, truth, freedom, justice, and equality. So I respect that. Then back in around 2004, there was this other sister known as Carol Mosley Braun. Too smart for her own good. And she was a stupid black woman. She might have won. But she was so smart, they was like, oh, heck no, we can't let this black woman, we cannot let this modern 2004 Democratic goddess get in office. Not happening. I mean, so Shirley Chisholm, she had to fight up against imperialism, racism, and sexism. Lenora B. Fulani, she had to fight racism, sexism, and colonialism. The goddess Carol Mosley Braun, back in 2004, she had to fight against what? Racism, sexism, and classism. So back in 2020, this is 2024, 4 years ago, a beautiful sister, Kamala Harris, in California, she ran. But she too had to fight against racism, sexism, and classism. Now, I'm not a Kamala Harris advocate. I don't, it's a lot of crap that she did back in the day that I personally disagree. I don't say disagree with. I dislike. I mean, I personally have a close friend from the state of California. I'm not going to get into his name. That's not really relevant. But he traveled 3,000 miles from California to my house. And we had a meeting and we busted up on some things years ago. But one of the things he brought up was when I mentioned the name Kamala Harris, he was like, yo, I can't stand her. I was like, what you talking about? What's up? And he explained to me how she was instrumental, in basically 3 strikes you out. So there's a lot of young black so-called African Americans in California, mothers, fathers, sons, aunts, uncles, what have you, that be like, yo, this black woman here was in the house. She was riding with them folks. Her husband is this Jewish white guy that, she was riding with. I'm not coming with racism, sexism, or classism. I just want to look at the reality for what it is. You know what I mean? So the reality is, before becoming vice president and tasked with migration reform in Central America, Kamala Harris received a lot of criticism not visiting the border personally. You know what I mean? You know, she coming in as the attorney general with the 3 strikes you out stuff, with you know all those kind of things marred her public image. And when she ran for actual president of the United States of America, you know, back in 2020, it wasn't really, in my opinion, external forces alone, but she had external and internal forces that worked against her and resulted in her withdrawal way before the actual primaries took place. So she couldn't carry a national election. So we're here now. Biden is mentally and physically an old man. Republicans are arguing if he's too old to run tomorrow, he's too old to run today. They have a legitimate argument, a legitimate grievance, if you will. And I ain't saying that I'm not a Republican. Keep that in mind. And I'm darn sure not a Democrat. I mean, I'm a humanitarian. I believe in a republic. I believe in a world without borders. I believe in humanity. So I don't take no popular stand. I know my little tiny independent independent political party based on freedom, justice, equality. We're not going to win this onslaught of injustice, chaos, division, slander, technology, oppression. It is what it is. You know what I mean? But that's not going to make me put my hard white teeth on my soft tongue. I'm going to speak the truth and let my truth travel 1,120 feet per second regardless of whom or what. So, we have Shirley Chisholm. We have our girl Lenora. We have Braun. We have Kamala. Me personally, I don't tell nobody how to vote. I want you to understand, in reality, if you vote or you don't vote, you're still voting. It's just that, are you going to vote for the big devil, the little devil, or the small devil? But at the end of the day, family, we always vote for the devil.